entrants. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of the HHH Racing Podcast, episode 226. I am your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for watching today's show. Please make sure you subscribe on the bottom right-hand side of the screen over there. And after you do that, smash that like button. We'd really appreciate that. It'll bring everyone to the HHH Racing Podcast. And also hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. This episode is a very special episode, as myself and our wonderful co-host, Paul Halloran, had a chance to interview the one and only, the Hall of Famer, Mr. TODD PLETCHER, for a good half an hour, discussing three very pertinent topics, especially of the time of year that we are showing this as of late January. This was aired on January 24th, Tuesday. And so we're very excited to present this to you. We talked about three different topics. First, we talked about his Pegasus Day Stake entrants. He has four of them running this Saturday as of this broadcast, January 28th at Gulfstream Park. We also discussed his very talented 3-year-olds in his barn and his hopeful Derby prospects. And then we also discussed the Eclipse Awards, which are happening Thursday, January 26th. He has several horses nominated, and he himself is nominated for Outstanding Trainer of the Year. He is a 7-time Eclipse Award winner. After we show the interview, which is going to start here in just a moment, please stay on at the very end for a few other quick announcements. But we hope you very much enjoy this special interview with Mr. TODD PLETCHER. Thanks for watching, everyone. Howard Kravitz here with my wonderful award-winning writer from the Saratoga Special, Mr. Paul Halloran. And now we're going to be bringing on another award winner. But this gentleman is a 7-time Eclipse winning trainer. He has won thousands of races all over the world, over $450 million in career earnings. He's simply one of the best trainers in the world, Hall of Famer as of 2021. Let's bring him on from Florida, Mr. TODD PLETCHER. TODD, thanks for joining the HHH Racing Podcast. How are you?
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, TODD, it's a very exciting time of year, of course, and we know you're very busy, so we greatly appreciate all the time you're giving to our viewers and listeners today. We're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to talk about the horses that you have entered this Saturday at Gulfstream Park. We'll also mention some of the exciting 3-year-old prospects that you have, hopefully towards the Kentucky Derby. And then also, of course, the Eclipse Awards are Thursday night. And TODD, I also have some PPs on the right side of my screen, on the second screen. So we'll go ahead as we talk about some of these horses, TODD. You'll be able to see the past performances as well. Let's first talk about on Saturday in the La Provigant, the number 4, Beside Herself. This is an Uncle Mo filly in a long distance turf race. How do you feel about Beside Herself's chances this Saturday?
Well, I feel good about it. You know, she's kind of found her specialty in these 3-turn turf races, and unfortunately, the last race was taken off the turf and run on the synthetic, and that wasn't really something she cared for. We could tell pretty early on in the race that she just wasn't handling it. She kind of gutted it out to stick around in the end, but wasn't her thing. So we're hopeful for good weather on Saturday and getting her back on the turf and hopefully finding her better form there. But she's been training well and coming up to the race in good order.
TODD, there is other speed in the race. Do you feel she's a need the lead type, or do you think she can sit off and finish at this distance?
Well, that's something we're going to have to find out. You know, I mean, clearly we would love to be loose on the lead and comfortable fractions, and that's always, you know, an advantage. And the turf course at Gulfstream seems to be playing kindly to speed. But, you know, at the same time, we took the blinkers off last time because felt like she just was a little bit headstrong in the race before that, and I thought she rated kindly enough on the synthetic. It's first of all, I didn't think she handled it well, and secondly, it can be at times difficult to win on the lead on the synthetic. So I think that race was kind of, you just draw a line through, and then we'll leave it up to Louise to employ the right tactics.
Yeah, I think she definitely has a shot. Paul, the next horse we're going to talk about is in race 8, Paul.
Yes, Colorful Mischief, Todd. If you take that Ravens Run race off the page, the horse is amazingly consistent. So I guess anything particular happened that day, and how do you feel about her coming into this race?
No, she didn't run well in the Raven Run at all, and that, like you said, that's not normal for her. She is very consistent. She didn't seem to handle the paddock scene real well that day, and I think that contributed to a bit of a dull performance. I thought she ran great last time. Unfortunately, she kind of got bottled up on the inside, kind of from the 3/8 pole to the quarter pole when the winner made a kind of a sweeping move and got the jump on her. So cutting back in distance a little bit today or on Saturday, and we'll see how that works out. This to me on paper is a little bit of a tougher race than what she's coming out of.
Yeah, Obligatory is a very nice horse. Do you expect a forward move for her, Todd, coming second off the mini layoff here?
I mean, I think she's tactical enough that you can kind of play it off the break and see how the race is unfolding. But she should be one that would be a stalking type.
Paul, do you have another quick question about Colorful Mischief?
No, I was just going to say, Irad rode her, Todd, in the Open in her career debut, and then he hadn't ridden her again until last time. Would that be any help of him kind of getting reacquainted with her last time out?
Yeah, he was pretty critical of his ride on her last time. He felt like that he made a mistake, and he had an opportunity at the 3/8 pole to maybe tip her out and go kind of 3 wide, and he thought about it, and he decided to stay inside, and as he did that, he kind of had to tap on the brakes and wait while the winner got the jump on him. So I'm sure that'll be his thought process this time if a similar scenario. But he's a terrific rider. I don't think he needs necessarily to get acquainted with one to know what to do.
No question about it. Todd, let's talk about another long-winded runner you have. This one for the males in the WL McKnight. It's a fantastic race. I remember they ran at Calder for many years. Now it's run at Gulfstream. Aban, a very nice horse by Will Take Charge. Tailed off a little bit at the end of last year. Got nice prep. Has been involved in a lot of fast fractions. I'm sure you'd like to see this one also loose on the lead with Luis Saez, a horse that I think is very live, second off the layup for you this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we expect an improved performance from him. We knew that the last race was not really his specialty. He definitely is a horse that wants to run these marathon distances, but at that time, the only option doing that was the Allen Jerkins, which was 2 miles, and we just felt like that was a little too much to ask him to try that coming off the layoff. So, we got that race under his belt. We've got some good works in him since then. Again, he's like beside herself. We'd love to be loose on the lead if it unfolds that way, but he's proven that he can sit off and still perform well. So, same thing. We'll kind of let Luis make that decision as the race starts to unfold.
And Todd, he's a 6-year-old now. Certainly he's got plenty of, races left in him. What's your plan going forward, assuming he runs well this Saturday with Aban?
Well, if he continues to do well, I think the Pan American's next, maybe on March 4th, and they got a nice series of those races here. So that's kind of what we're thinking. Of course, we need to see how he does in this one, but that would be a logical next step.
Terrific. Now, Paul, you're going to talk about the next race, and of course, this is one of the 3 Pegasus races: the Philly Meriturf Invitational, of course, the Turf Invitational for the males, and then the Pegasus World Cup on dirt. But Todd has a very nice newly turned 4-year-old in Wit from the rail, Paul.
Yeah, Todd, I was there on his debut race, Belmont Day, almost 2 years ago now, and obviously there was a lot of buzz, and 5 steps out of the gate, it didn't look like it was going to go that well. And He's really come into his own on the turf. And before we talk about the specific race, has he been a hard horse to figure out, Todd?
No, not really. I mean, he was very precocious as a 2-year-old, and so he was a little bit tricky in terms of, like you said, you were having trouble getting him to really get out of the gate and get involved early, and it wasn't a behavioral issue. He just wasn't firing away from there, but he was still performing really well. He had a little bit of an airway issue that we had to do surgery on after the Champagne, and so when he came back, he was training well. He had a good comeback race in the Bayshore. Kind of plateaued a bit, we thought, in the Woody Stevens, and so just kind of looking to find some other options, we decided to work him on the turf, and it was clear to us when we did that he really took to it. So I think he's a horse that could still perform well on the dirt, but he seems to really be enjoying himself on the turf. Kind of got I thought, a little bit of an unlucky trip in Del Mar last time when he got shuffled back down the backside and fractions were a little bit soft. So I think, with a little better trip that day, he would have been right there. And so we decided to take a shot in here and drew the rail, which hopefully could work out. You always love to save ground on the turf when you can, if you can work out a trip from there. I do think he's an improving horse, and we've had some luck similarly with Colonel Liam when he won 3-year-old stake at the end of December and then came in as an early 4-year-old and was able to win this race.
Well, I'm queuing up the last race right here. I know you just mentioned it, but this is for everyone to watch here. Wit is the 9 there, and you mentioned the shuffle really came on late. I believe had the best final eighth of a mile turn time in this race. So he's got a real nice turn of speed. Are you at all concerned that he might not, the 9 panels might not be best and he might be a miler, or do you think this sets him up perfectly for this race on Saturday?
I think that's a good point. I think you could argue that maybe a mile would be ideal for him, but these opportunities only present themselves so often. So I think with the right trip, and like you said, he was still closing well at the end of the mile and 8th race there at Del Mar. It wasn't the distance that cost him. I think it was him not being able to get that early position that we were looking for.
Yeah, you see closing really well there. Speaking Scout, the winner of that race. The rail usually, Paul, I would say is a good thing. There's quite a bit of run into the first turn. So I don't know, would you prefer to be inside or outside in this race, Todd, or are you sort of indifferent about the post position in this type of configuration?
Well, I don't think being way outside would be a huge disadvantage, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to be 10, 11, 12. I could keep from it, but there, like you said, there is enough run to the turn that I think everyone gets a pretty fair crack at it.
Paul, you want another follow up, and then we'll get into his 3-year-olds.
No, I was just saying, Todd, I know you ran him on turf for the first time. I was up there for the Hall of Fame, and he ran well that day. And he really has had nothing but good efforts on turf. So you have to be, pleased with that decision. And I think you had worked him right on the Oklahoma turf. Is that what kind of prompted you to take a crack in the Hall of Fame?
That's right. Yeah, that was what his first turf work was, and it seemed obvious that he took to it. So that's when we opted to get in the Hall of Fame.
And I don't think many of the practical jokes are killing it on turf, if I'm not mistaken. Right? He might be breaking the mold a little bit.
You see some into mischiefs will take to it. We've had a little bit of luck, and we're kind of playing it more off the Medaglia d'Oro mare, and so it wasn't something we were sure of when we went out there and worked him on the turf the first time prior to, but it seemed obvious once he did that he took to it.
Yeah, there's the stats there, Paul. Only the practical joke, only 5% in turf route. So, Todd, this is a really talented horse. I think you guys have done a tremendous job with it. I'm fascinated to see what he's going to do. It is a very tough field, though, and it's his first time against olders. So there are some concerns just from a class standpoint, but he could certainly step up his game.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. We're really pleased with the way he's train coming up to it. So I think he, whatever it is, he's sitting on his best race.
Terrific. Paul, let's get to this 3-year-olds. You have a very exciting crop of 3-year-olds, Todd. I know a lot of people that are going to be watching and listening to this show would love to hear an update on some of your 3-year-olds. And we'll talk about some of the main ones, and you can roll down through some others as much as you feel comfortable with. Forte just got back training, had his first breeze in 38-1 this past Saturday at Palm Beach Downs there. How is he progressing, and where do you think he'll be pointed to in his first race of the year?
Well, he's had a really good break. He went to Stone Street, Ocala, and freshened him up and did a little bit of light training with him. Ian Brennan and his crew did a great job sending him back to us and put on a little weight while he was there, and looks really good. So we kind of laid out a possible target of the Fountain Youth at Gulfstream on March 4th. And so we got our first breeze in on Saturday, and we'll kind of continue on a weekly work schedule leading up to that. And if we feel like he's ready, then that's kind of what we're thinking at the moment. But the good thing about this time of year is you don't have to feel like you're under too much pressure to make a certain race, because generally there's a prep race run somewhere almost every weekend. But if things go exactly the way we want it to, then we're thinking Fountain Youth. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll consider either the Florida Derby or the Bluegrass. And he's done very well at Keeneland, so the Bluegrass might be where we opt to have the final prep, but we'll kind of let things sort out as we go along.
Well, it's nice to have some points also towards the top of the leaderboard, and you can pick and choose a little bit. Paul, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you have 40 points at this time of year, Todd, it takes a little of the heat off, right? You can pretty much
that does help. And I'm glad to see that they kind of bumped up the Breeders' Cup points a little bit. I've always felt like, if you have the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, you should be pretty safe getting into the Derby.
Before we move on to the 2-year-old champion, of which he will very likely be named on Thursday, historically hasn't won the Derby much, but this horse has done nothing wrong. I mean, going into the year, I would think you'd rather be going in with the top 2-year-old than with one of the contenders.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've taken shots at the Derby from multiple directions, but it's hard to win no matter what. But when you have a horse, that has the experience and seasoning that he was able to get as a 2-year-old and show that type of talent, it definitely gives you more confidence going in.
The next horse is a horse that Howard and I are both kind of on board with. Todd, we thought he ran terrific in his maiden, and he took some action in this recent future pool. Tell us about Tapit Trice and how he's progressing and where you might go next with him.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he's a very talented colt. I thought he ran pretty well in his debut. I honestly thought he was capable of winning his first start, because he trained like one who might. But he got a good education in there. He came back. He didn't get away real well in his second start, and I thought put in a long, sustained drive and was able to beat a colt who came back and won over the weekend. Like most of the Tapits, I don't see distance being an issue for this horse. He's got terrific action, got a very good mind disposition. So probably going to come back in an allowance race that hopefully would set us up for a stake after that. But we're pleased with him, and we think he's one that has a bright future.
Todd, I absolutely love this horse. I'm praying for you. I hope he stays healthy and does well. I love his stride. He's really fluid. He's long-winded, but I think he has a little bit of acceleration when you need it. He's learning like all these other 3-year-olds are. My main question, by the way, Slip Mahoney is the horse that won this past weekend, who got to believe a high 80s buyer, Paul. So Todd, it's nice to see horses that he beat come back and do well. My main question for Tapit Trice, and I'm sure a lot of bettors are going to be interested in this question, is I'm slightly concerned, Todd, that he's a little bit slow out of the gate, and he's a closer, which that metrics doesn't work necessarily very well for Gulfstream. So do you plan on keeping him down there? Do you think you might ship him out? Has he been improving from the gate? Talk a little bit about his style and what track might suit him best this spring.
Well, I agree with that. That's something we've been working on in the mornings, trying to do some different things with him at the gate. I don't want him to necessarily fly away from there. I just want him to not put himself in a disadvantage. So it's possible he could show up in an allowance race at Gulfstream. And I think, you obviously don't want to come from out of the clouds at Gulfstream. So if he can just break well enough to get himself in a good position, I think that'd be fine. But I do expect him to show improvement. He doesn't have any behavioral issues at the gate. I think, especially when we get hopefully in these 2-turn races, he'll find himself in a stalking type position.
And Todd, real quick, he has very interesting breeding on the dam side. Could you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I to be honest with you, I'm not real familiar with it. It's not kind of a household name, but obviously he was an outstanding individual and, fetched a lofty price tag as a yearling. So, he looks all tappet and, he's a leggy colt with, like you said, he's got a really good way of moving.
Yeah. I love his stride. Paul, any follow-ups before we move on to some of his others?
No, we can go.
Go ahead, Paul.
Kingsby, another horse who took action in the last pool, Todd, was Kingsbams. Tell us about it. He broke his maiden just a few weeks ago at Gulfstream. He is an Uncle Mo by a Tappet mare, which means he should definitely have no issues. What's next for him, and how is he progressing since that maiden win?
Yeah, he came out that well, and because of like you're talking about his pedigree. We had a couple options that day to go 6 or a mile, and I felt like that a mile could be within his range first time out. And, you're always concerned that's a demanding distance to debut, but what I really liked is with the professionalism that he showed for a first time starter. He was in behind horses all the way down the backside, and then at the top of the stretch, kind of had to push his way through a spot to get in the clear, and and then accelerated really well. I thought it was a super debut, and so same thing. We'll probably look at an allowance race, and then that could hopefully propel him into one of the preps.
You've got another one, Chesterkin. You also have Litigate, and Cuvier and Sergeant Pepper, who did not win, but he's a very expensive colt. I'll just let you talk about any of those 4 as much as you like, Todd. Again, Chesterkin, Litigate, Cuvier, and Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah, so Cuvier won the 6 furlong race on the same day as Kings Barnes, and like I said, we're kind of trying to figure out the correct distance for the 3 of them. And we ended up getting it right with 2 of them, and probably wrong with Sergeant Pepper, who I think has as much talent as those other 2 colts. Just didn't work out for him in his debut, but I think when we stretch him out, we'll see some improvement there. Cuvier will probably try to stretch out and go into an allowance race. He's got an interesting pedigree. He's by Collected, who wasn't your typical city zip. He performed well at 2 turns, so we're hoping that this colt can also do that. Chesterkin, I thought was a very good debut from him. He's been training well. We'll also try to stretch him out in distance and an allowance race. So it's an important time for all these horses that the next race is really critical in putting them in a position for a significant prep after that. And I think right now with Litigate, we're probably going to go to the Sam Davis and get him around 2 turns, and hopefully, I thought he ran well last time. I think he's capable of doing a little better than that. Hopefully, 2 turns is what he's looking for.
I believe he lost to Cyclone Mischief. Is that correct, Todd? Who's if that's true, Cyclone Mischief looks like a nice horse for Dale Roman. So Litigate has already faced some nice ones.
Yeah, he did. That was a solid A of the van, and around 1 turn, and I think that was a good stepping stone for him. But you would think, being a blame out of a mine shaft mare, that more ground is going to be what he's looking for.
I have one more quick question, Paul, if you don't mind, for Todd, and then
Yep.
we'll move on to the Eclipse. This is probably an unfair question, Todd, because it's almost asking as if who's your favorite child. But other than Forte, of all the horses we talked about, or perhaps there's a horse in your barn right now that hasn't even debuted, who would you say is second right now on your list of your top 3-year-olds in terms of where they are now and their progression going forward? Could you pinpoint one horse other than Forte?
Well, I mean, I think the group that we spoke about, all of those horses are in a position to step into the 2 slot if they can step forward in their next race. But like I said, Tap and Trice is a horse that I'm confident is going to handle the distance.
There we go. That's what I want to hear, Todd. Thank you very much. We're very. I put a few dollars in the future pool, and Paul as well. So maybe we shouldn't talk, Paul. Maybe we shouldn't talk quite as much. We're going to lower his price in the futures. I don't know.
Well, they can't do anything to the 45-1 that closed last Sunday.
No, they cannot. Paul, let's talk about the Eclipse Award, sir.
So, Todd, we want to talk about your horses. We talked about Forte, who is almost, he's a lock for champion 2-year-old. You have Nest as the 3-year-old filly, Malathat as the older female. And, Life is Good is a finalist in the Horse of the Year that obviously is very likely to go to Flightline. But, to have 3, I know it's 2 days away, but presumed champions, if you could just talk about the ride, literally the ride that group took you on last year.
Yeah, I mean, those 4 horses and starting with Life is Good, he had a tremendous career and kind of like everyone else, just Flightline was simply too good in the end. But I think the career that he had, and to be able to win races like the Whitney and the Woodward and the Pegasus, those were phenomenal wins in a lot of years. If you take Flightline out, there's probably a very good chance that Life is Good is champion older horse and possibly Horse of the Year. But he went out with a courageous performance, and looks like he's getting a great reception at stud. So we're excited about that. Malathat, I thought that was, arguably the most exciting race of all the Breeders' Cups, and it was very gratifying to us. She's one that just had such a great career, and to have her for a 2-, 3-, and 4-year-old year, and I thought she was a little bit unlucky in the distaff at Del Mar. She kind of got stuck down inside, got bumped a little bit, and just missed. So it was great to see her be able to come back and redeem herself with a win there. And Ness just had a phenomenal year to win the Ashland and be second in the Belmont. She ran an incredible race that day, and come back and win the Coaching Club in the Alabama, and not only win them, but impressively. So yeah, we were really blessed just to have a super strong stable, and to have what should be 3 Eclipse Award winners in 1 year is just we're fortunate.
Paul, do you want more follow up before I?
Well, maybe. Well, I was going to say there is a human category they give out on Thursday, Todd, and by all accounts, it's going to be very close. And we know you've won 7. None since 2014, so it's your turn. And I know you hate talking about yourself. I know from trying to write about when you were going into the Hall of Fame. So I know for a fact you don't like talking about yourself. But you do, have to be gratified that you are in the mix. And, we had a show last night where I am a voter, and not because you're on, but I did vote you number 1. I thought you had the best year of anyone. And if you could just break tradition and just talk a little bit about your self-satisfaction in the year you had.
Well, it's a team effort, and we got a lot of people involved in making this happen. But I think for our barn, what's most important to me would be for those 3 horses to win their Eclipse Awards. And if they do that, then I'm going to be really happy. And if we happen to be voted for champion trainer, that's terrific. But it's really because of those 3 horses, those 4 horses, those plenty of horses that contributed to that. And so hopefully we got the best out of them, and that's something that we can all be proud of. But look, we would love to win it. There's no doubt about that. But for me, if the 3 horses win, that's most important.
Well, just to give everyone some stats on TODD PLETCHER in 2022, 223 wins. That's a 22% strike rate, 61 stake wins, 36 of them graded, Todd. So you had a tremendous year. I also voted you number one. I do not have an official vote, but I voted you number one for our show last night. I think you're well deserving of it. I cannot believe you've not won since 2014. What are these voters looking at? I don't understand, but I think you have an excellent shot on Thursday. And just the last question before we close the show, and once again, really appreciate your time. Any goals for 2023? Is there something specific that you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners out there for the barn this year in particular?
No, I mean, we always approach every year the same, and our goal is to do the best we can with each and every horse that we get the opportunity to train. And sometimes hopefully that turns into an Eclipse Award winning season for that horse, or in some cases maybe the best they can do is a maiden claim win. But that's the way we try to approach every horse that we get the opportunity to train. And look, I know that we're not going to have as good a year this year as we did last year. It's just, when those stalls, when Malathot goes off to be bred into Mischief, and Life is Good goes off to Stud. I mean, those stalls are hard to fill. And so I think we got an exciting 2-year-old crop. Michael Poli and Vinny Viola and St. Elias Stable were very active at the Keeneland September sales. We're excited about that. But, we also know that years like 2022 are hard to consistently reel off.
Well, we were there at the Belmont, both Paul and I, last year, and when Mo Donegal won, it was a very boisterous crowd, Paul, for sure. So the Rapolis were out in full force that day.
If Mike Rapoli is there alone, it's a boisterous crowd, as Todd will attest.
Good point. Todd, listen, we really appreciate you coming on the HHH Racing Podcast. We wish you great success Thursday night at the Eclipse Awards, and, of course, this Saturday on Pegasus Day and the rest of 2023. Thanks for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
All right. That was Todd Pletcher. And again, we really do appreciate his time on a very busy week. We will continue to give you the best coverage possible here on the HHH Racing Podcast, which will include guests, analysis of races, and everything in between. I also want to give a big shout out to my fantastic co-host, Paul Halloran, who is an award-winning journalist for the Saratoga Special, just received honorable mention recognition by the Eclipse and the NTRA. So congratulations to Paul Halloran. And also I have another fantastic co-host, Pete Visco, who does a lot of work. So hope everyone very much enjoyed that interview with Todd Pletcher. Again, please make sure you subscribe on the right side of the screen. If you're new to the show, please spread the word about the HHH Racing Podcast. Our flagship shows are on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we also have a sports betting show, which you'll very much enjoy, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, called Bettin and Boozin. For my co-hosts, Paul Halloran and the fantastic trainer, Todd Pletcher, this has been Howard Kravitz, episode 226 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.